In preparing this, I had no intention to rattle through slides, but to talk about topics and come up in different order. So I'll come in like different order. So I then thought, what questions would the people have in terms of ultras in what I've worked with? So there I am at work. Although I'm not at work there, I'm at a wedding. But where I needed a photo, that's the smartest picture ever seen of me. And I'm smiling, so that's quite good. And my good lady wife is in the background there, for those who know her. And there's someone knocking at the door, and they're asking for help. So I populated some questions, and I think these are common questions that I get from ultras. I don't know how to train. Should I train for 10-hour sessions? Well, I've worked with physiologists where we've prepared people for ultras, and absolutely going in slightly underprepared is much better than slightly overprepared. A 10-hour training session, if that is a jump up from a previous 3-hour training session, will take you an enormous amount of time to recover from. And thinking that through is the feeling that, yes, you'd feel unprepared, but it is the intention to really brutalize yourself before that good preparation. And the answer is no to that. Is that if you were to do 10-hour training, then the 10-hour training could be mental training. And we flip that to if you're going to do an event for 10 hours, and this is something when we look at in mood as we get to that, is have you ever concentrated for 10 hours on doing exactly the same thing? And how would that feel like? And how does your mind meander from the task that you're going to do? And at what point you go, I've had enough of this. And that could be something utterly mundane. But it starts to tap into the processes of sticking on the same task, doing exactly the same thing repeatedly for a long period of time, and then which will go through some of the emotions of feeling a bit bored. Is this worth it? Have we done enough? And you start then getting access into the mindset of what will happen. Never mind layer on top of that physiological responses of how difficult it is. Yeah, so the answer is usually no. 10-hour sessions are not that useful. And certainly with our rower about to row the Atlantic, and we were never doing 10-hour sessions. One way to get knowledge around of this is to then look, 15 years ago, YouTube was not flooded with videos of people who have done these ultra endurance challenges. There were not podcasts where people have been interviewed and have done them. So if you're doing an ultra event, I would say go and listen to all of them, because what you get is rich experiences of what people went through, and they will talk through the difficult times, and you have to accept it's difficult. And certainly in the work we do with ultras is ultra athletes, you have to expose people to the challenge, what they're going to be doing. They have to know it's going to be difficult. And what they're doing requires a lot of training. My colleague, Greg White, who I do a lot of work with, prepared David Walliams for the Channel Swim. And there's some footage early on where they did one of the first cold water swims where Greg jumps in, who's fully acclimated, fully used to cold water, pops up and says, David says, what does it look like? He goes, oh, it's lovely. David jumps in and he's got the cold response. And he's shivering. And then he gets fished out because it's cold response. He's shivering. And you find this video on, it's on YouTube. Just search for it. And at that point, he started getting to realise, he shifted to saying, to stop, to changing from I'm swimming the channel to I'm attempting a channel swim. The size of the task. Good, that's good, because it starts saying I need to mobilize my resources to do so. But you don't have to do the thing in training all of the time. You need to go in, you need to build your training up, and it's really difficult to recover from 10-hour sessions at any intensity. But it is possible to see 10-hour tasks, which are quite mundane, as activities in preparation for that. The big part is how much recovery do you get.
Well, we'll go through some of the questions we've got right now. So some of them will be straightforward to answer. Some of them might be a little bit more in depth. So we've got go for now. So go on from Harvey Gallagher, who says, do we really believe? Do we really need to believe we'll achieve our goals? And what's your thoughts on that?
You need to commit to them. You need to commit to the act that you're going to try to achieve it. Absolutely commit to the process of achieving it. I mean, you don't really need to commit to the belief you're going to achieve it, because you accept that you might not do it, and not doing it isn't the end. It's not the end of the world. And the ultras, one of the bits about ultras is that they can be very risky, and mental toughness isn't just about going through very, very difficult challenges and succeeding. It can also be when you realise that if you do pursue it, may well be the worst thing you need to do. Look at the people who try to climb Everest, who battle through extreme conditions and then make the bad decision to go up when they shouldn't have done because they want to push through to achieve their goal, when actually the harder decision would be, we've got to stop now. Sometimes that's the better decision.
Yeah, and I would add a little bit to that, and obviously I'm nowhere near as qualified as yourself, but what I would say is the converse side of it, though, is that if you believe that you won't achieve your goals, then you're very likely to not achieve those goals. So that's something you need to think about when you are goal setting, I guess, is look at that goal and it does have to be. It's great that it's scary. It's nice to have a big behemoth of a goal there, but at times you have to look at the goal that you might break it down into smaller sections and say the goal for this particular ultra is to do X, as opposed to hitting the big target in the distant future, and sort of break it into a small manageable one. Because I think if you're focusing on a really big one, for argument's sake, if I said, right, Darren, I'm going to go run 100 miles in 20 hours, that would be certainly a challenge for me, and it'd be a very scary challenge. I would have to break it down into manageable chunks, otherwise that would break me. Another question that I've got, which is actually quite a good one from Emma Longfellow, is have there been any studies about the mindset in men and women ultra runners, and if so, who fares best?
Yeah, well, you see, the problem with that would be that you don't get massive sample sizes to start with. The qualities of the people who do very well tend to be similar. The difference between performance is smaller between males and females because of the biological advantage males have is strength based, not endurance based. There may well be gender differences, and females have an advantage on an average basis.
Yeah, what I would say to interject a little bit on there again is that I think one of the biggest challenges we have within ultra running is there's very few quality studies being taken on ultra running. There's lots of stuff on cycling because, of course, Tour de France and various other big events, but there's been very few on ultra running. I think one thing that we can all agree with, though, is that the few studies that have been out there have kind of shown that the longer the distance goes in the actual ultra race, that actually the narrower the gap is between the performance levels of the men and the women. And actually, as it gets to super long, we tend to find actually women seem to fare better. There's been a few studies around that I've read in the past that don't come to mind right now, but there has been a couple of studies in the past that have shown that the longer the actual race is, the women tend to fare better. So. It's then looking at the psychological qualities of being able to sustain an intensity of effort for a long period of time. If you flip that to the goal, just flip that back to the goal part, is you should believe that you can maintain you should set your goal so that it's about a process. Can I maintain this intensity for this endurance time, and then break that down into different units? There's one part saying the intensity, how fast and how hard. That's really hard to judge your pace. But what you can do with greater confidence is judge your intention to keep working hard. Will I give up, or how confident am I after 7 hours of being able to push the quite hard moving button
and then accepting whatever pace comes with quite hard moving, because this is the bit where it's really you don't know in many senses until you're very experienced. And this is the same for marathons, I think. The second half, the final 6 miles of a marathon, for many people, until they've done a few marathons, their confidence to be able to go, I'll be able to push this hard is unknown. So we don't run that distance very often, rightly so, because it's damaging. But you can get confidence on an intention to be able to push the how hard button. And so therefore what you say, what might success here would be to continue to push. I'll try as hard as my limit. And you set a frame. It's never sprinting. It's as hard as possible, but it might be a quite an intense effort for as long as possible for whatever pace that is. And when you look at ultras, some of them go up and down hills. And when you see someone going up a hill 22 hours in, they are usually walking, but walking with intention. And they are breathing heavy because it's walking with intention. Marathon des Sables got some monstrous great hills in it, and they walk up with intention. So you can be confident on the intensity of pushing the effort, because you've got really good inner measures of how hard and how hard you're going to go.
Yeah, for sure. Another couple of questions on here. One from Stuart. Quite a topical one. It says, with the rise of kudos on Strava or likes on Instagram, has this changed how we emotionally respond to exercise and what we search through running in the sports community? So I guess what he's asking there is, does the likes and the kudos change the way we approach our sport? The first part of that is we all like positive reinforcement, whether that's conscious or not. But so if you are on Strava, you come in from a run, you feel your watch buzzing, and you go, I've got 7 people who like the run I've done without even doing anything. I mean, that will make you feel a bit better. I think my point would be reflection on is for you to reflect on what that is happening to your inner story, and go, actually, do I want that? Do I want my runs? Do I want to be reinforced in that way? And yes and no. I mean, I think there's lots of benefits to creating communities, particularly now in where you're not meeting with people. It helps. But it can have many downsides where there's comparisons going on. I mean, I think have you not all had it? I lost my local legend status. I can't believe I lost my local legend status. That's not. And then you have the various segments I've got, which are I get an email saying that so and so's taken your segment status. I know they're on a bike. And so on. They're not motivating. So mine would be to be mindful of the effect Strava has on your psychology. I would definitely say, and to add to me, I think it can become an unnecessary distraction from your training. So you can start becoming overly focused on having that Strava segment or getting those Instagram cracking sessions on there that get the most likes, and focusing on that rather than maybe when it comes to terms of ultra running, a majority of our running is going to be done at a pretty steady pace and isn't really going to rock the world for likes. So if you get focused on chasing kudos or Instagram likes, then you may distract yourself from your actual journey. Another question that we go on from Steve Jones here is, what about dissociation? I try to switch off. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong. What's your thoughts on dissociation?
Oh, well, dissociation works when you have when you're running at a lower intensity, because you can dissociate. It's very hard to dissociate when you're running at pace and when you're running at high intensity, not paces. So what happens is when you run hard is that your brain has a natural protection mechanism that it informs you of such, and physiological sensations prevail. So it's very hard to think about anything but the physiological sensations which dominate your consciousness. So if you want to start learning to disassociate, then go very slowly, or lower the intensity, and find something interesting to listen to. So the dissociation podcasts are a great way to dissociate, because you listen to the conversations. If you're running too quickly to not listen to it, then you then slow down. If it's not gaining your concentration, find something more interesting to listen to.
I personally find that dissociation is actually quite a good technique if you can master it. It's that sort of moment of zen when you're running, but all of a sudden you kind of wake up in the middle of your run and go, wow, I've just done 2 miles. Where have they gone? That's quite a good thing that I find personally.
And there's also, then there is that flow type state where consciousness tends to drift, and that comes from where you're non-consciously, you're immersed in what you're doing to the point that you're not actually thinking about anything else, which is slightly different to actively concentrating on not running. But again, the route to getting into that can be strategies such as imagery of repeated actions going round. So you learn to start concentrating on your feet turning over, and concentrate and focusing on that, and then the brain just carries on in autopilot, and eventually your brain that's talking in the background switches off, which is a strategy that's quite useful. Is this quick enough? What's going on? What time it is, and so on and so forth. That is switching that off sometimes. Why music's quite useful for helping us switch.
We'll
off.
Do a couple more questions, and then I'll let you crack on with the presentation. I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking a big chunk of your time here. So one from Donna here. It says, this all makes sense, and I can relate to it in both endurance and in other life events, as Andy pointed out. But everything I have achieved has been achieved by others, so I knew it was possible. Does the psychology differ when your goal has never been achieved before?
It doesn't. There's parts of that journey which people have done, but it's only usually the preparation parts are shared. If you're going to run for a certain distance, then people have run up and to that. It's pulling out the parts that is common and that you can learn from. And of course, where it's not been done before, it creates a greater anxiety that's not possible. And where it's not been done before, many have tried, it shows you how difficult it's going to be. And therefore the seriousness of what you must do to overcome those barriers. And in your preparation, in search of strategies to overcome them, absolutely vital to do that. Whatever those may be. And in ultra, it's often around the physiological states, fatigue, sleep, and hunger are part of that aspect of it, of where it can certainly, if you get those wrong, it certainly can unhinge your performance.